Welcome to our final video for the third coursework for COMP3218, the Games Design Development course at the University of Southampton. My name is Dave Millard. I'm here with Charlie Hargood and Ricky Prince. And we're going to look at two of the games that were handed in for our third piece of work that use VR technology. So Ricky, do you want to say a bit about what the students were asked to do?
Absolutely. So overall in this coursework we asked them to build a game prototype that took advantage of one of the sort of key innovations within the games industry over the last sort of half a decade. So we asked them to look at integrating either adaptive difficulty, procedural content generation, real-world location-based elements, or a novel game interface. And the two that we're going to look at right now are ones that use a novel output mechanism, a display mechanism, the virtual reality headset.
So fair play to them for doing it at all, right? Because not many students had a go at this. So
No.
I'm looking forward to seeing what they came up with.
It should be fun. Right, so we've got Charlie set up in a VR headset. He doesn't know what's going on. I think he's going to have a go at starting this game. Well, which game is this? This is Asteroid Blaster Master, which I think changed name. But go on, Charlie, what's happening?
Okay then, so I'm going to get started. So we've got a globe and we've got some asteroids. So let's have a shoot at some of them. Okay.
So I played this one in the expo. I think as well as it being VR, I think they tried to integrate some adaptive difficulty in. Is that true?
So basically, what we're looking at is
it's a case of it's a look and shoot VR game basically.
Yeah.
So I've got there's some red asteroids as well as other ones. It's not immediately clear what they do.
No, I think they may just
more
be
health damage, maybe.
They might do more damage, yeah.
So it's not quite a VR version of Asteroids, is it? Because you're not moving about, you're not.
Yeah.
But it's a first person incoming shooter.
I think the flaming ones require more hits to kill, and there isn't a lot of feedback on that.
You're not sure that you're hitting them.
Exactly. It's like, did I hit that or miss it? And it's most of the time it's actually yes, you hit that, but
you've lost a lot of health as well. I'm not sure why that is.
So health starts at 300%. So instead of balancing the amount of damage, they balance the amount of health you started with.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
But yeah, you start at 300. Go on, Charlie, have another go.
Go pad to that.
So the premise is that you're defending Earth and you're standing on this platform in space with your space cannon, and you're shooting asteroids out of the sky.
So
I quite like the little menu in screen. It sort of in world. It sort of keeps you
immersed in the place. Yeah, indeed, that's good. So this game does have one of the problems that these sort of look and shoot type games have, in that it's not single directional, or at least if it is single directional, it's single directional but quite varied, because I'm now facing a completely different direction, which means I do absolutely have to be standing to play this game. You couldn't play it sitting down, I don't think.
Why do you think? Why is that? Is that because of lack of accuracy of the accelerometers in a phone?
Well, no, actually, I think because the thing is, the asteroids aren't coming from all directions, right? They are coming from, broadly speaking, in front of you. But I'm now facing about 90 degrees to where I was before. So I guess that their field of approach is just slightly too high.
Yeah.
And occasionally as well, I have to crane my neck up a little bit high. What is completely comfortable, but I think that's just minor HCI issues that come with using this interface.
So in terms of the game itself,
they're worth considering when you're building this sort of game.
So in terms of the game, that's right. So in terms of the game itself, it's kind of I mean, it's quite nice. I kind of feel like you need some clues as to where the asteroids are coming from.
Yeah.
And it feels like I don't know whether they tried it with the asteroids coming from all directions, but I mean that would certainly have been a more frantic experience.
It would have been much harder because you've got such a narrow field of view. I think it would have been.
But they could have given you some kind of map of where they're coming from that maybe would have helped you with that.
Yeah.
So they said there's positional audio, but when I was trying in the expo, I didn't really get much feedback from that. It didn't feel like there was a lot of information.
And the feedback again, so it's not actually clear when the asteroids hit you.
Yeah.
It's also not clear that the attacks on those sort of golden asteroids are significantly different than the other ones.
Yeah.
So I think they could do with more feedback about what's going on.
There's an information design issue here, basically, isn't there, about how you express
Yeah.
that. It's also worth noting, because it's such a fast and frantic game and I'm concentrating on the thing, I don't actually look at my health or score pretty much ever while playing it. So I think they could have done some colour feedback there as well, maybe. You make it change colour.
I think they really needed some feedback when the asteroids hit you and you lost health.
Absolutely.
That's crucial. I do like they've got the HUD going on. And we've already mentioned it, but I think what's nice is not only do they have that menu in game, but actually it's distinct from the HUD.
Yes.
So you've got two different places where you're getting information, and that's really quite nice.
The only thing I'd say is when I played this, it felt like the on-screen HUD, the health and the score, was a little bit obscured. It's a little bit out of the way your eyes are looking. That makes it a bit trickier to see.
Guess is Charlie's point. So
the key question that we're meant to ask about all these is does this innovation, does adding VR to this arcade Asteroid blaster enhance it in any way?
Is it a gimmick? Do you get value?
I don't know. I think it probably does add some value. I've got blue asteroids now. I've never seen them before.
Whoa. I think in terms of immersion and getting you concentrating on the game.
Yeah.
For what's a relatively simple game that might not, if it was in 2D on an arcade camera, it may not hold your attention for as long. But Charlie's been quite immersed in this for a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah, no, indeed, it's definitely playable. I don't think it's a gimmick, right? I mean, this is definitely a different game to a normal sort of point and click shooter like this. I think a point and click shooter like this, if you just had like a web browser and click on the asteroids, would be boring within a short amount of time. Whereas this is more fun.
I still think the mechanic that we had this with one of the other games. The actual shooting mechanic
isn't very satisfying. No, you're absolutely right. Actually,
and I think probably what they should have done was gone for a faster and more furious approach.
Yeah.
And actually, I would have thought about maybe put a little map in there, show them asteroids coming from different directions. That gives you a real, one of the things that the VR can give you is it opens up your field of play enormously.
Absolutely.
Right?
Sure.
And your ability to turn very quickly and look in a different direction.
Well, there is a certain degree of pragmatism with that though, as well, Dave. Right, being able to spinning around in your room in VR is a pain in the arse.
So fair point.
Currently, especially with the phone-based ones, the refresh rate isn't good enough to not make you feel sick.
I wonder if they tried it and it didn't work. I wonder if they just said the updates the accelerometer isn't quite accurate enough to swing quickly. But it does feel lacking, and I think partly it's because of the shooting mechanic, but also I think if they got the shooting mechanic right, it could have been a faster and more frantic game.
Yeah.
And I think that would have been probably more involving.
I think also, Ricky, did you say that they have put some adaptive difficulty into this?
I thought they said they did, but I don't know
so
where
it does feel like it's got adaptive difficulty, but it doesn't feel like the curve is very smooth. It's like super easy mode and then super impossible mode. So
well, also I'm guessing they've done it with the types of asteroids.
Yeah.
Because that seems to be what's happening. Whereas just adjusting the speed of the asteroid incoming velocity might well have been a better way of doing it. Yeah. But again, fair play to them for doing it at all and for thinking about it.
Yes.
It certainly works. It's certainly playable.
It is.
So do we think? So we kind of think it works as a VR experience. It is immersive. There are some problems with the mechanics, but so does it really take advantage of the VR? Are there things that the VR offers that they're not doing here, or that they should perhaps explore?
The thing I'm not sure about is using head tracking as a control mechanism in this situation. It doesn't really fit with the theme. I think it would be quite neat if you were playing this game and you had a different way of controlling the cannon, but that you could use the VR to look for where the threats are coming from. So if they were coming from everywhere, and you could look around and you're like, you've got to turn over there, and then you've got to turn to shoot that. But using your face as the cannon doesn't quite.
So again, it's a limitation of the hardware, really, isn't it?
I guess
they haven't got the motion controller to do that.
Yeah.
But I think that could possibly work. And would have been much more immersive if you were actually sat in a ship.
That's it.
Then I think that's one of the things that I actually think about is given that what they're actually really leveraging here with the VR is this notion of immersion to make you feel like you're there. just a little cockpit skin or something around it to make you feel more like you're in a spaceship would further leverage that immersion.
Or again in a gun turret. You know,
yeah, indeed.
You
Or
feel
something.
like you're in a big gun turret and you're moving, swiveling the gun turret around.
Yeah.
You know, you're sat on the top of the Millennium Falcon.
And make
that's what you want.
Make the bullets not look like the sort of default sphere. Okay. It's just like if you're going to leverage immersion, then you have to try and make it feel a little bit more realistic.
Well, that goes back to the comments about the actual shooting mechanic, and say this is a game where all you do is shoot things. The most important thing to do is to make that absolutely as satisfying as possible. And I think if they'd done that, then the immersion would have been that much more. I think you'd have got much more out of the game. But even without that, as you said, it's still something that holds your attention, that you kind of that's quite fun to play with. But it feels a bit like a toy at the moment, and not a game that you'd actually want to play. But a good attempt, I think.
Yes. Shall we move on then?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, good stuff though. Well done for having a crack at it. Okay, so this next game is Bowman VR. So Ricky's going to suit up for this one.
Yeah,
I'm in.
You in? You
right.
going?
Fire to restart.
So talk us through what's going on, Ricky.
So there are trees and rocks, and I believe there's going to be some balloons attacking me in a minute. And I have a bow and arrow.
Yes, indeed.
That fires from my nose.
I marked this one in the expo. It's a similar premise to the last VR game we saw, in that essentially it's a point and shoot game. Although that arrow is much faster than I remember it being in the in the expo.
So fair enough. It looks like it's more satisfying to fire than the.
Yes, for sure. Well, it's more responsive. It does actually fire on your clicks.
Are the balloons coming from all around you, or just those?
So they're coming from a cone in front of you, and to try and indicate the direction that they're coming from, I think there's a big rock behind you, so that you can't sort of look in that direction without. And expect balloons to be coming from that one. We're just resetting the server here for our recording setup. So there's a big rock behind you to stop you pointing that direction, but it does still have a little bit of the problem of the Asteroid game, in that I think the cone is slightly too big. It's a bit narrower. It's nearly at the stage whereby you could play it sitting down.
But again, all you need is a little warning thing, or a little some indicator to tell you where these things are coming from.
Indeed. I mean, it's one of those. I mean, I should state for the record, given that we mentioned it for the other game as well, making VR games for which you need to stand up is not necessarily a bad thing, okay? But you're adding an extra constraint to your game, and you have to wonder, why am I taking this extra constraint?
Yep.
Am I gaining anything because of it? Okay? And in this particular game, but given that it's just a sort of point and shoot thing, I don't think you do necessarily gain anything by having that additional sort of field of enemies. I think that's. I mean, that's the big rock behind it that stops you.
So one thing I do like about this is the arrows drop.
Yes, indeed.
So actually, if you want to shoot stuff that's far away, you do have to take that into account.
Yeah, indeed.
It's a little bit more of a skill shot than other games might be.
Indeed, exactly. So and that's again a nice sort of thing about making it feel satisfying, right? To shoot it.
Yeah.
So I like that too. I mean, something that again is worth. Oh, we've lost the server again, Ricky. I'm afraid. Something else that I think that is worth mentioning again about this game, though, and it sort of applies again to the Asteroids game, is that one of the big affordances, things you gain by using VR, is this notion of immersion. And having a game where you're being attacked by violent balloons.
Yes.
I mean, it doesn't mean every VR game has to be super realistic, but you have to. It could be little green bouncy monsters, okay? But you need to sort of make it believable within the context of its own game, and I'm not sure necessarily balloons are the best thing to be doing.
So the point is that immersion is key. And everything you do in the game has to reinforce that immersion.
Indeed.
Even if it's your choice of incoming bad guys.
Precisely. You have to sort of enable that. However, that said, I am sort of fussing over details here about sort of use of the technology. The baseline level of this game is very good. Okay, it's fun to play. The shooting's responsive. I think it does make it's definitely more fun because of the technology. Okay, it is a good use of it. And they've done very well to overcome the challenges.
I think the information design is simple but effective.
Yeah. Score's visible.
Score's visible.
Yeah.
Can you see your health down the bottom, Ricky?
Sorry?
Can you see your health?
Yeah.
So it's when you've hit something as well, because there was the big explosion with stuff everywhere, right? It's quite sort of satisfying.
Yes.
We've lost the server again. I think we've
We'll have one more go.
Yeah, one more go. Okay, fine.
Cool.
I don't know why we're losing it so much on this one, but not the other one. But okay.
So I think in terms of so the questions are: is this a gimmick? Have they actually integrated the VR? Have they done something fundamental with the VR?
Yeah.
And have they actually used the strengths of VR?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, a bit like the previous game, they've basically they've used the first-person perspective thing quite effectively, but they've not really got that sense of menace. They've not really got that sense of incoming danger. We've already talked about that.
Yeah, sure.
So perhaps they could have used it a bit more effectively. But they've at least got a premise that fits the VR system.
I think that's exactly what you mean, but you're right, Dave. I think we found this with both of our VR games to some extent, is that in the question, is this an effective implementation? Absolutely. Okay, yes. This is an effective VR game, okay? Cool. Is it taking best use of the innovation? A bit more mixed, okay? Yeah. It's making use of it, but I think that really the VR brings certain things to a game that these guys aren't necessarily taking advantage of as much as they could.
I mean, you're
that doesn't make it a gimmick. I should stress that. But it is. But there is more things that they could do.
I don't think you get the same sense of fantasy in this game as the space game.
Yeah.
Like space is a place that I couldn't be, and being in VR allows me to feel like I'm there a little bit. Whereas standing in a field shooting some bows and arrows, like people running around with balloons or something, I might be able to do.
Absolutely, but also by the same regard, the space game had you just sort of floating in space without a cockpit or anything around you, whereas you could believe that you'd be standing in a field.
So I think one of the places I'm not convinced it worked, but I think there is an argument that because you have the skill shot thing, because the arrows drop, and is actually using a little bit of the stereoscopic aspect in order to judge distance.
That's true. That's
and I'm not sure whether that's not very effective or whether it's just completely subconscious.
You know what?
But that's a nice little aspect.
When I played this in the expo, I don't know about you, Ricky, but I do vaguely remember having a better feel about the sort of the depth of the objects and using that to make my aim actually. So I think that.
I don't know if that's just feedback from. Because you've got a quite good tracer, you have a shot and you have an idea of where it landed.
So actually, that's a good point. Actually, I wonder if the super rapid fire is necessarily a good idea for this game. We talked about having the fast and frantic one, particularly with the Asteroids game. I wonder if this is a game that might actually benefit from having less enemies and carefully considered accuracy, like draw back the bow, make for a shot. Okay, that might actually
make it a skill shot game rather than a frantically shoot everything game.
Indeed, that might sort of. So, I mean, it's not so much necessarily about the VR, but from the point of view of good game design, okay, that's a dynamic that sort of fits this this aesthetic a little bit better. But
still a very very playable game, engaging.
So very good.
Well done.
Excellent. Cool. So that's the last of our VR games.
Yes,
it is. So I think and the last of our Let's Play for this year. So
for the whole year.
The whole year.
Sadly.
So it's been a lot of fun doing them. Thank you to all the students who put in games and worked really hard on them. I've been really impressed with them.
Absolutely, it's been an incredible bunch of games. We're really impressed at what the students have managed to come up with. It's been a broad range of different courseworks with very varied games that have been required of them, and there's been a really interesting mix of results from that.
I think most importantly, we've had so much fun playing games and talking about them. It's been a great coursework.
There is not much marking that you look forward to.
Absolutely.
So well done, everybody. Thank you so much for really throwing yourself into it. And we're really looking forward to next year and next year's games.
Yes, indeed. We will be back next year, Internet, with another set of student games.
Thanks all.
Thank you.